Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of acoustic music, looking at songs with acoustic instruments. It's right there on the tin. You kind of know what you're in store for with this theme. We're going to be checking out some Finntroll. The song we're looking at is called Svart Djup. Let's dive into it. See what Finntroll is bringing to the table today. Nice little 6/8 is what I feel. You can also feel this in a 4/4. I like the trumpets.
Stämma under på himmelens stirra bland fyr och räcka ett isande skrik ur skogens glor i nattlig sky ur rymdens svarta djup.
Very light snare work in the backgrounds. Some tambourine. I like his vocal. Oh, we have some woodwind in here. I like his vocals though. The warmth, the lower range works really well. Little motif there, call and response with the vocals. That section actually ended with an expansion of the motif. That was cool. Nice atmosphere here. Expanded instrumentation. It also uses a fuller sound on the production. We have instruments placed further away now. What already felt like a rather full production feels bigger now. I love it. All right. Yeah, that was a nice little track. Not a lot to it. Just bouncing back between an A and a B section. We have a nice bridge in the middle. It does what it does. Very concise about it. I think it's out. It's less than 4 minutes long, and we have a little bit of the intro and a little bit of the outro. Honestly, probably closer to like 3.5. 3:40. So, I mean, it's a short track, but I think it does, again, what it's attempting to do concisely and to leave you wanting more rather than feel satisfied or even wishing it was shorter. And that's honestly the best way you can go about creating music. I do also like the very rooted feel of it, a lot of the instrumentation going on. We have, I think, a tin whistle, we have acoustic guitars, we have some trumpets at the beginning that never really came back. We have a lot of vocal work, tambourines, guitars. I think I already said that. Oh, and a snare drum. Also, what I feel is some traditional drums rather than the modern, not necessarily a steel drum, but metal-based snares. Instead, using something of a stretched membrane over like a wooden body, right? That's what I mean when I say traditional drums. I think we have some of that in here because they're a warmer, more resonant tone when they get struck, more so than the modern snare or even tom that we find in a majority of uh, metal drum kits, even rock drum kits. And I find these to just have a lower tone and a wider resonance to them. Gives them a little bit more echo, a little bit more decay to it. And I don't know, something about it I always associate more with a rootedness, a groundedness. Probably because I know that that tone is closely related to the way that drums used to be made. So that might have something to tie into things as well. But the instrumentation here is really well done, and I love how they continue to expand on it every time we reach a section that we had been to before, like the second chorus or even that final chorus. There's always an expansion, more instruments, more ideas, more layers, and I like that idea. The song is in constant growth. Every time we return to somewhere we are familiar with, we get to hear it from a new perspective or with new layers, and that's always very cool. Also, on the topic of timbres, I think that the dude's voice works really well for this. The warmth and roominess of his voice, the lower pitches, I think all of that works really well, and it's delivered very comfortably. It's not a very loud or projected vocal delivery. It's very calm and centered and almost private in a way. I wouldn't say that it looks inward. I wouldn't say it's an introspective delivery. Introspective. Why does that word sound weird? But it is something that is more of a tight knit group. Something that you would be singing to the five people around you more so than singing to tens of thousands in an audience, right? And I think that kind of makes it feel a bit more social as well. I mean, the whole thing feels like a group playing music together. Kind of reminds me about yesterday's song from Katira. It's just something about the way it's recorded and the tone and delivery of stuff that makes it sound communal more so than individual tracks being recorded in a studio. And his vocals delivery really leans into that. Now, a majority of the song has a very flowy, sway kind of feel to it, and that comes from the feeling that comes from the metric idea. We have a mixed 6/8 or 3 pulse if you want to count it that way. I was conducting in 3 at the beginning of the song, 1 2 3 1 2 3. But I think I also conducted out a 4 within that as well, if you could feel it in that. And then there was a larger 4 that I feel like the drums were representing, where each of the 1 2 3s is a single beat of the 4. So it'd be 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 2 2 3 3 2 3 4 2 3 1. And so you have this slower 4 that I think is what most people are going to lean into on this track. It's what they're going to move their body to, but it's not going to be this slow headbang. It's going to be a fluid movement because the 3 keeps things going while the 4 is a bit slower. And I think that combination works really well at, again, kind of creating this grounded idea. This isn't a song that's taking off and trying to go anywhere. There's not really a lot of momentum to it, but it isn't stagnant either. This comes from that dual rhythm that we have going on in every aspect of this track. And it works so well too because it gives the plethora of instruments, especially towards the end when we had 8, 9 different instruments going off, different things to work with. There are a lot of rhythmic instruments in here, and if they were all doing the exact same pulse, that would get a bit boring. But to keep it feeling varied, to have all the instruments doing something interesting, and to allow this song to feel as dynamic as it does by the end, we need various layers. And that's where the rhythmic element comes in. They're going to be differentiated by timbre, sure. Production placement, center channel, left channel, right channel, sure. But also rhythm. And by having these different rhythms, they're going to interlock where different instruments are going to accent in the spaces, the rests of other instruments, and it's going to create something that feels a bit more complex, even though it's really just a bunch of simple, like building blocks. It's just that what you build out of that tends to be more complex, but the ideas themselves in isolation are ridiculously simple. And that's another thing. Just this whole song is an exercise in complexity through simplicity. No single idea in here, whether it's rhythmic or melodic or harmonic, is complex in any way, but the end result is something that feels layered and dynamic and complex, and that is just really efficient, intelligent writing, and I love it for something like this, especially capturing that folk vibe, as a lot of music that we associate with folk music tends to be simpler composition. And so you find complexity by adding together a bunch of simple ideas. And it works really well in this case at both creating the mood and, borrowing these ideas from years past, centuries past, millennia past. How far do we have to get to Western folk music? I don't know. Where was I going to go with that, though? Talking about layers, complexity, rhythmic chunks. I don't remember now. Anyways, it works really well. It's what gives the song its feeling. What is the emotion of this track? The thing is that the song isn't entirely rhythmically focused. We also have the melody that the vocals give us, which I kind of feel them to be weighty. Not necessarily negative or positive, just having impact. But we also have atmosphere. Not a lot of it, but the bridge itself is hyper focused on atmosphere, really building up an emotion, a feeling, before diving back into the rhythmic complexity of our final chorus. So what is the emotion that they're going for in the bridge? I wish I could tell you. I definitely have my association with music like this tainted a little bit by pop culture. Much like metal doesn't really feel like an emotion to me other than just aggression. It is just rule of cool metal riffage. I don't really find stories out of like metal riffs. I also don't really hear much of a story here. The chord progression is just basic enough to provide tension and resolution, but doesn't really tell me a story. It's missing the complex elements that would give me specific emotional, like a series of specific emotions that I could interpret something out of. And in the end, it ends up just kind of feeling like generic Western folk music, something that I think you could hear in a lot of films that kind of showcase music from 1,000 years ago or so. All that tells me though is, I mean, maybe it is just highly generic, but it also tells me that I don't have enough experience with this to tell if it's generic or if I don't understand it. And so I do believe I need to listen to some more true folk music. and see if I can't develop a bit of a direction of what that is doing. Same thing goes with metal too. Although at this point it's been 5 years. You'd think if I was gonna make anything click with that, I would have done it by now. So it could just be that this is more of a generic style of folk, and they're not actually trying to do any sort of storytelling with the atmosphere. But as usual, I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments if you have a different interpretation of the atmosphere of this track, if it tells you anything specific. I mean, the first thing I think of is trees and nature, and that's just like such a generic imagery for this that I don't know if that is my own inadequacy or if that's actually what they're trying to channel. I don't know. Um, I think that's about all I wanted to touch on. Let me hit some lyrics here and then we're going to wrap this one up. And see, I didn't get any of this from the music, which, again, it says the voice of death whispers in the wind, evil stars in the sky stare. Among the chaos echoes an icy scream, the claws of the primeval forest in the night sky. From the black depths of space. 5 feet of black steel in his fists he squeeze. A black shadow from the earth's deepest hole. Long ears and razor sharp horns under the brows glow two fiery red coals. Now the sword is raised towards the edge of the sky. The steel now freezes air into ice. Lifeless remain every woman, every man. Judgment falls and silence reigns the black depths of space. This is about evil coming into the world. I'm not exactly sure what this evil is. It at the chorus seems to indicate it is the black depths of space, but I kind of got from the first verse that something was coming from the black depths of space. So I'm not sure if it's more of a specific thing or if it's the concept of space. But I mean, we do have someone squeezing steel in their fist, raising a sword, having long ears, horns, and two fiery red eyes. I mean, that's very demonic. That describes a demon. So maybe that's what we're dealing with here. But judgment falls, and every man and woman in the vicinity is killed by the sword of this demon. That's the whole song. Possibly from out of well, it says the black depths of space. Yeah. So out of space comes this demon, comes down, wreaks havoc, and that's the song. And musically, I'll tell you, I got none of that animosity, fear, terror, or horror out of the music. I was very surprised to find the lyrics talking about this topic. Maybe it's subversive, right? Instead of playing metal, you play these acoustic instruments, but you tell a very metal story on top of it. And maybe there's something interesting about that. Maybe there's something comedic about that. I don't know. It really caught me off guard, though. I was not expecting anything like that. So I want to extend this out then. These are my thoughts on Svart Djup. What are your thoughts about this, particularly if this is the first time you're hearing it as well? But even if you're very familiar with this and haven't ever looked up the lyrics, do they surprise you too? Does anybody get a feeling in this song that matches that? I mean, I say this all the time, right? Just because we don't have a thematic tie between the lyrics and the music of a song doesn't make it bad. Um, and sometimes you can even use subversion like that of contrasting emotions. Happy music with a sad song can help get through some pain of sadness and stuff like that. So sometimes you can use a subversion in positive ways. This just feels like it's a complete mismatch. It doesn't really harm the song in any way, but dude, it's so wild. And maybe this is just a me thing. Maybe everyone else is like, nah, dude, I saw that coming a mile away. Of course they were talking about some demons coming from space. um, I'm so flabbergasted though. I really am. Especially with how pretty the song can be. Like, it honestly has some beautiful moments to it, especially the final chorus. It's just so good. And then it's like, yep, he killed everyone. That dude from the blackness of space. He's a nasty one, isn't he? And you got flutes and clarinets and fun little flowy, polyrhythm stuff. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts though. Your interpretations of this. If you agree with anything I said. Above that, in the description box, you can find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for this one. We do have a special selection coming up next. It's a long one. I don't know what we are in store for, but it's like 20 minutes. So, if you're looking forward to some long music, probably metal. I mean, most everything we check out is metal. It's probably a safe bet, right? You definitely go want to check that one out, though. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. We're going to continue on with this week's theme. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.